All righty, so we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone. It's great to have folks here. I am Amber Bismack, which I know pretty much everyone I think on this call. So it's good to see you all as we start to come out of winter into spring, which is exciting. Welcome back for another meeting here, which I'm looking forward to talking through all the things that we've been working on. So some reminders that a lot of you already know, but for any folks who may forget or don't know, some of the work that we're doing comes out of the connection that we have with Thriving Earth Exchange, which is part of the American Geological Union. This is our work with our hydrologist, Dr. Wendy Robertson, Dr. Rod Lammers. We also work with Scott Dirks and Emma Geis. These individuals right here, these three, we don't have a picture of Emma. We need to work on that. But they are wonderful hydrologists who've been helping us collect all the data that we've been putting in, gathering with all those gauges that we have. And then Claire Zarakis is one of our community science fellow who's connected us with these wonderful folks about 3 years ago. So we've been doing this for a while. Sorry, I have a tiny human who's joining. So I'll talk a little bit later about the work that we've been doing with this and kind of our next steps with this project when it comes to all the data collection and whatnot. But I just want to kind of send a quick reminder as to that's where we are. And through this work with them, we've also then been connected with a lot of other organizations, which a lot of you already know, but we'll kind of talk about and have some reminders in there. Before we keep going, I want to just kind of remind folks and kind of revisit the fact that we actually had our second winter flood that we've had in the past 5 years, actually, this past January. So this is the current river level today. It's at 4.6 or so, though with all the rain, I'm sure it's higher now. But that flood in January, on January 30th, we reached 7.35 feet. So just over the current flood stage that is designated by NOAA and that we've connected with the township. So just slightly over that flood stage, though, over a foot higher than what the flood stage used to be. So this flood in January is actually about the 15th highest peak we've had. What I found kind of interesting when going back to the levels on the river is that this flood now, because of this flood, 12 of the top 15 floods since 2000 have all been since 2000. So kind of more indicator of how much more frequently we've been flooding more recently. And then just a quick shout out to thank you to all of you on this call and so many others as well in our community that really band together to help all the folks. One of the challenges with winter flooding is with the ice that then floated up in people's yards, the difficulty of people getting in and out of their houses. So I just want to say thank you to everyone for all of your help with each other so that we make sure that we're all safe as we try and maneuver the cold and the flooding all at the same time. So that's that. The other thing that, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. You talk for about 10 or 15 seconds and then you freeze up for about 2 or 3 seconds. I can understand most of what you're saying, but just to let you know, it seems to freeze up every 10 or 15 seconds.
It's fine on my end.
Yeah, yours is kind of doing the same thing,
good.
Mark. It'll stall and then it goes again.
Oh, maybe it's me.
I'm not good here.
Yeah, you're good here.
Not having a problem. Not a problem here.
So other people are able to hear me at least?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll keep going, but thanks, Mark, for saying something. Please let me know if it gets worse. And now there's a thunderstorm coming, so who knows what'll happen, but let me know if it does become an issue. And Mark, hopefully it kind of clears up on your end. So the other thing that kind of happened recently that I just want to send some info out and some reminders is that we did get notification. We did get notification about a month ago that the August flood that we had back in 2023, so this past August flood that also had the tornadoes, led to the President Biden designating that as a major disaster declaration, which what that means is then it opens up a whole bunch of funds from FEMA for folks to be able to get money through FEMA, particularly through low interest or no interest loans, to be able to deal with all the damages that they might have had. So if you or anyone you know is looking to do that, you actually can apply for that funding through this link called disasterassistance.gov. Or you can call the phone number. I know about 3-4 weeks ago, we're in March, probably about a month ago at this point. Folks from FEMA were actually walking through the neighborhoods, letting people know about this, getting folks signed up for these should they need it. But that's something to keep in mind if you feel that you need to. And get that support. So we want to make sure that folks have access to the resources to be able to help deal with some of the damage that happened from that flood. And then anyone else, who also was dealing with damage from the tornadoes as well, which was quite an issue, all from that one storm. The other thing that I received information from, thank you, Cindy, for sending it, is that on June 15th of last summer, that was also designated disaster declaration due to the windstorm that came through. And so you actually can because of that, you can also put in claims through FEMA to get support there. One of the things that Cindy shared with me, which was helpful, is that there is actually an appeal process through FEMA. So part of when you put a claim in with your insurance and whatnot is there's a chance that it may be denied or turned down for it. You can actually appeal that decision, because oftentimes those decisions are made with like not enough information. And so if you appeal it, providing more information will actually get you likely to get you the claim to go through so that you can get the financial support through it. So after the meeting and stuff, I'll send an email with that information that you shared, Cindy, for folks to be able to know how to appeal decisions from FEMA's in case you want to get more information. Cindy, was there anything else that you wanted to jump in or add in with that, since that you were able to share that with me?
No, you covered it well.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. I'm going to pause for a second. Did anyone have any questions or anything about these designations or the flood we had or any of that stuff before I keep going about some of the new things that we've been working on?
Good here.
Okay. Okay, so now I get to share a little bit about some of the progress that's been made in the past so many months, which is exciting, being winter, that we're still able to make a bunch of progress. So as you know, one of the things that we've been working on is with the Army Corps of Engineers. They're actually doing a flood inundation study, which pairs with the work they did on Ore Lake and south on the river a little bit. This is actually more the upstream side. So this inundation study is looking at South Ore Creek and Dubrova Creek to identify mitigation efforts on those areas, on South Ore Creek, Dubrova Creek, to actually help hold back some of that water so it doesn't keep hitting us with it every time we get storms, as we're getting one now. So these are the folks we've been working with from the Army Corps of Engineers. Back in our meeting in October, Catherine came and actually talked about the modeling that they were going to be doing. The exciting thing is I did reach out to them in mid to late February and hear that actually that model actually should be done in the next few weeks. And so once that model is done, myself and a couple other folks are going to meet with them, get a status officially as to what's going on, and then we'll actually set up a meeting time for them to come back to our community and actually share the results and what those suggested mitigation efforts are. So we're actually getting fairly close to identifying what we can actually do upstream to hold the water, which is really exciting. So that's a to be determined, but hopefully to be determined very soon. So not nearly as much waiting as we've had for so long with all the data collection. So this is great. And I will also add too with this, is part of the reason why they've been able to make the progress so fast on this modeling is the models. I'll help them identify what they could potentially do, because they have to put in different scenarios into the model at different amounts of rain and so on, and then try different mitigation efforts to see if it would actually do what we'd hope for. Part of the reason why they're able to develop that model so quickly compared to when they typically would was because of all the data that we've been collecting. We were able to share that with the Army Corps, and they could just take it and run with it instead of having to wait a while and gather their own data. So it's pretty exciting that they're able to use ours and make such progress so fast. So more to come on that soon, but this is a really exciting time that we're almost finally there, which is awesome. Also, in some other exciting news, I had mentioned this back in October, that the paper that Lena had was the first author on, and I helped her with, along with Jay, who's on the call, and Wendy at Central, around her work with the GIS and the wetlands, and how using GIS to identify changes in wetlands in the area on South Ore Creek and in all aspects of South Ore Creek across the different regions. That actually in October it was accepted. It's now officially published, which is really exciting. And so the link is here, and we'll post the slides. You can actually read it. It's an open access article. It's a really exciting article that it's actually fully published. And the great thing too is we're able to use this data to inform what we can do in wetlands upstream with mitigation efforts. For example, one of the things she found is there weren't too many places where there was development into wetlands. However, there was a lot of change of the wetlands. So from one type of wetland to another. Well, when a wetland changes, that's going to change how much water it can hold. And so those changes actually can cause then issues for us with flooding. And so that all of that information and all that that study that she found, along with the data we're collecting, is all going to be able to be used together with that model to identify these the mitigation upstream and the ways to hold back some of the water. So it's really exciting to kind of see all of the pieces start to finally come together. So we'll share that article. Like I said, the slides will be there. You can click on this link right here and get to the article when we post the slides later, but I'll also just share the article as well with folks after.
Are you going to post the slides on Facebook or just send it out in an email?
The slides will get posted onto our website along with the recording of the meeting. So those will be there, and then I can actually share the slides to and an email as well. It's a bit hard to share slides on, I might be able to share the slides on Facebook, but it's kind of hard because of the different platforms. But I will definitely share the article on Facebook. So to be coming soon. Other questions so far before I keep going? Alrighty. So also just some exciting things. Jay's on the call. Thanks, Jay. We got the news today that the students at Innovation Academy are continuing their work with us around water elevation and the mapping efforts. And to do so, they actually were able to gather some funding and purchase kayaks. So they now have their own kayaks to be able to come out. Actually, in April, we're going to go on a few kayaking adventures to go actually gather some more data on the lakes and rivers around here for elevation and mapping efforts. So that's pretty exciting kind of next steps in that relationship with them and kind of where we're going with it, along with continued work with GIS as we continue moving forward. Jay, I think you're still on the call. Did you want to, is there anything else you wanted to jump in or add into that?
Just we're very excited about that, and it provides us a lot of flexibility to be able to help out and to respond in time. Our hope has always been to kind of, when there's flooding, get the kids out there, and now this is one step closer to that, to be able to come out and explore some areas once the flooding hits.
Cool, Jay.
Yeah, that's great. Very exciting about that. Cool. So we're looking forward to continuing that effort with them the rest of this school year and then also next year as well. So also some quick reminders. We are, now that it is spring, we are in the gauge installation stage. So in the next few weeks or so, Carrie will be setting up coordinating a time to actually get those gauges in. The great thing is right now the posts are actually still in, so there's less effort to install the gauges. It's kind of more dropping them in and just making sure everything is set and good to go. So hopefully it's going to be a pretty seamless process to install those. Carrie, is there anything you want to add in?
No, no, it should be easier and quicker this year. Are we planning on putting the witch sticks and the cameras back out this year too?
Yep.
Okay. I just need some time to do that because they've got to be completely restored. I got to take all the paint off of them and kind of rebuild them.
Okay.
They're kind of worn out.
Yeah, that's fair. We can talk about that. Well, and also that reminds me, Carrie, did you want to say a few words about the data we've been collecting from all of the footage from the lake levels and stuff?
Yeah, I put that, I kind of crunched the numbers in that spreadsheet. With Jeff's help, we were able to catch the early in the year, the March, April flood. And then later in the year, even though I was occasionally checking cameras, for some reason, two of the cameras decided to reset their dates to 1996. God knows why. And then the other ones either got knocked offline from weather or the focus got knocked out from weather. And you try to stay on top of them. I have to do a better job this year, maybe check them every week. So there's some fragmented data from like May on to the rest of the year, and it kind of missed the bigger flood later. But I do have some data, and I put that together in a spreadsheet. We could share that with people who want to put it up on the website for people to look at. So I basically plotted it. And what I did is I also plotted the river gauge itself and the outlet of the culvert here at Riverside. So all four of the locations are on there, which is the North Shore Bayou, over by Tom, down here in Lagoon, and then the outlet of the river to the river And then I plotted that against the actual river gauge. So you can look at the dynamics of how the water moves. It's not, they don't all run together. You can see where one rises up and then the other one's delayed. Then as the northern part starts to settle down, you can see it swell on the farther south location. So you have to look kind of close, but there's some interesting dynamics there. I haven't had a time to really dig through it, but we do have that data, and so we were successful in capturing some of it.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Great. Thank you. And also mad props to Carrie for spending hours and hours and hours staring at photos of all of this, all of the data and everything to make sense of it.
Yeah, like 1,470 photographs. You had to read the numbers off the stick, so it was fun. You
I can tell you,
worked.
an engineer,
worked.
you call that fun. That's
Yeah.
awesome. To me, that was grad school. So actually that's really exciting. And so in our next meeting, which actually is in May, we'll spend some time. Carrie, you can share some of that data with us. We'll look at some of the
Sure.
data from last year as we lead into the new season and whatnot. So,
And as a side note, during the winter, when we tried to capture some data and measurement heights, we got probably another 40 flood reports. People were just jumping all over it. So there's about a total of 160 reports from the beginning of last year. So we have quite a bit of reports, a lot of photographs. A lot of that data includes the river gauge reading at the time that they took the photograph and submitted the report. So we have a correlation. So I'm going to go now, try to go dig through all of that, see if I can make sense out of that.
awesome. That's awesome. So, and that's great that you mentioned that, Carrie. Thank you everyone for posting on iFlood every time we have the water level coming up high. It's really helpful to see where it is on as it breaks over shores and banks and properties and all those things, to actually see where it is compared to the level downstream. So in the next few months, we'll be able to actually start making sense of it, as Carrie said, to identify kind of our next steps when looking at how the river level, what's considered flood stage, had changed, and think about, do we have enough data to then now say, actually, we do really flood at 6.5 feet, which is the intention of collecting all that data. So thank you for that. We will, more to come.
That's a good point, Amber, and I think you brought it up a couple of years ago. It will also give us data to back up the fact that river gauge water is not our water. It's different.
That's
so
correct.
We'll have enough data now to go, okay, you can use that gauge if you want, but that isn't always indicative of what happens on our lake.
Yep, exactly. So that is the river level. That is not what all the water that's there is not our water. We're getting the water
Correct.
from upstream on South Ore Creek and Dubrova Creek. So it's different. Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome. So exciting progress there. Again, more to come. Our May meeting, which is our next official organization meeting, is going to have a lot more information and data to share there, which will be great. So kind of the next thing. So one of the other projects that Mark is leading is with these grants to help folks elevate their homes above the flood level. And so to do this, it's a requirement to get them 2 feet above FEMA's flood level. So we did this back in 2022. We're going to submit these new grants in 2025 for folks. So for these, like I said, 2025, we're working with the township. Mark's working with Hastings, who's going to be providing some elevation estimates for each property. We also, which is exciting to share right now, is that we have been working with this organization called Community Engineering Corps. Sorry, I said that wrong. It's Community College Partnerships. I had the wrong name there. Let me change this here so people can know what I'm referring to, college partnerships. And so what they do is they actually connect community.
It just froze up.
Yeah. Hold on, Amber, if you can hear us.
Yeah, must have been part of that thunderstorm that had knocked her out.
Yeah.
We're watching the water rise.
Oh no, don't say that.
Oh, no.
It says Carrie is now the host.
Really?
Outstanding. Yeah, very nice, Carrie. Good job.
Yeah. So what's up, Carrie?
It was none of my doing, trust me.
Amber's probably dropped out and is coming back in, I'm sure.
Yeah, she'll be back. She has to relog in probably.
Yep.
So the data you were talking about, Carrie, is that I think Diane was graphing before. Is that the same data?
No, this is the camera data from the witch sticks that were in 4 locations around the lake.
Oh,
So,
okay.
The black and white witch sticks, we call it, you know, we can
Yep.
reach the lake. With the trail cameras on them that was taking a picture 3 times a day. That data, I actually went through 1,300 and some odd pictures, I think it was, and pulled the readings off of every one of them, and then I dumped them into a spreadsheet and graphed them. So you
Okay.
can see what the water dynamics are up on the North Shore, which is at Diane's house, about the midpoint on the East Shore, which is Tom Toko's house, one in front of my house here on Lagoon. And then the 4th stick is the one just outside the culvert by Gino's house there. So I got all 4 of those, and then I added in to the graph. I went back and pulled all the dates off of the river gauge that we all use. I went back a year and I pulled daily levels off of that and aligned it with the data that we took here. So you can look at what the river gauge does, what the North Shore of our lake does, the East Shore, the South Shore, and then the outlet towards the river at the culvert. So you can look at all those dynamics of how they interplay, if you will.
Okay. Diane's data, I guess, is the 2 cricks coming in, and then
Yeah,
and then
yeah,
also
I
the
think,
culvert.
yeah, I think she had plotted some of that. This is strictly the witch sticks that were in the lake itself.
Interesting. So like if you get a westerly wind that blows some of the water, I guess, and is there's other dynamics, I guess?
Or when you have, you know, like Bob used to say, when you get a lot of rain up on the north and it comes rushing in, you'll see the North Shore level go up well before you see the effect down here at the South Shore of the outlet of the culvert. Then all of a sudden, a couple days later, you see this swell. It's like a huge wave that comes down towards here. As the North Shore levels start to drop, you see ours continue to go up. So that's the dynamics of this, of the whole lake doing this, if you will. So,
Wow.
and then you can watch the river gauge, which is sometime later respond to that. So it gives us an idea of how the water in the lake itself is behaving. It doesn't go all up and down evenly. It's all affected by the inrush, when it comes through, how long it takes to get down to here, and then out through the culverts. So that was the idea, is to look at the dynamics of the lake, and that's what it did. That's what we captured, if you will.
Hey,
Very
guys,
interesting.
I just want to say that Amber's making her way over to our house so she can continue with the presentation.
Okay, thank you.
What a trooper. What a trooper.
Well, she wanted me to share the slides with you guys, but she didn't allow sharing, so I couldn't do that.
Okay.
So just keep chatting. You're doing a good job.
Chat,
That's
chat,
an
chat.
interesting stat that you gave though, Carrie, with how it starts up at the north end and you can actually see it on your stick at the south end. I never even would have thought of that. I figured water is going to seek its own level, but that's
And
incredible. You can see the dynamics.
Obviously it does, but with a 200-acre surface, you're going to
Yes.
see the input water go up first, and then it's going to get down to here, and then the input water is
Yes.
going to go down as we're still rising. So
Yes.
it's just like a big wave in your bathtub. This is
Yep,
what it's
exactly. It's those
It's a
jet
really
boats
big-
going around the lake, you know,
Yeah,
the wakeboarders.
yeah, yeah. If it was big enough.
Yeah.
So, and that's part of, you know, what happens to the different households around here, depending on their level. You know, how the water comes up on their property, and it also has an effect. You can see the effect. I haven't dug in. I plotted it and I made it all pretty so everybody can look at it. Maybe we can put some more eyes on it, yours and Mark's and everybody else. I haven't picked through it and really sort of zoomed in, sort of like maybe week by week, and looked at the effect. You can see the effect on the curve, but what we really need to do is to dig into what is our water doing here? What is the water doing on the other side of the culvert by Gino's place, which is the river? And what's it actually doing down by the river gauge, if you will, down there that we all look at. And I think the thing there is that's the one the township tends to rely on the most. But what we need to do is say our data isn't necessarily, or our water levels aren't necessarily what you see down there. Sometimes we're higher, sometimes we're lower. So using that river gauge everybody uses to sort of benchmark our lake levels isn't really a great thing because it's not the same. And that's all we're
If
trying
you
to
come
say.
back up, it'd be nice to have hot peppers. No biggie.
Yeah, no, yeah, that's, so that's the intent, is to take this plus all the flood data to the township and go, okay, you guys, you said raise it to 7 feet. Here's the deal. That you went the wrong way. You shouldn't have raised these flood levels.
All right, I am now at
Welcome back. Welcome back.
Did the Wi-Fi get hit by lightning or what happened up there?
Apparently, the irony is that we're the only people on the road with solar panels and everything, and of course we, somehow it
See?
doesn't.
Yeah, see you liberals and all your solar panels. See what you done?
Hi, very good. Clearly that's the issue. All right, let's try this again. Goodness. Oh my goodness. You guys
Now
are
we
fun.
already did that part.
Okay, so we're good. We got this done. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
because we are working with the community college
Okay,
partnership,
Yep.
the
Thanks, guys.
exciting
Appreciate
thing
it.
is that their students
Yeah.
actually came up for a visit in February. So in February, so by the way, the students are from University of Southern Alabama. One in particular was very excited to see snow, and Michigan didn't disappoint. So we got to see a whole snowstorm come through. So while they were up here, we were able to meet with Pat Hole, the township, who gave a lot of helpful information for the different properties to be able to help these students actually work on the elevation, the engineering drawings for elevation. These students are engineering students, and they're in their final semester of their undergraduate work. And so their professors are overseeing their project as they're actually developing these engineering designs for each property. So here we can see a picture of all of us with Pat Hole. The students here, we went to go see the Brighton Lake Dam. And then these two pictures actually, the other thing that was exciting is that we had students from Innovation Academy. So Jay brought his students out, and they were able to actually talk with the college students from University of Southern Alabama to actually hear what they're doing, see how their work is able to then help communities like ours, and also help these students actually learn how to do this type of engineered drawings for properties and whatnot. In fact, one of these students actually does work for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and is going to continue his work there once he graduates this spring. So it was pretty exciting to have them out in February. They came out here to see our community, to see all the things that we've been working through and the challenges that we have with all the flooding. Which gave them a lot of helpful insights into the what we've been working on. And then now they've been able to take that information and continue their work. So what's going to happen here actually with that is they are actually going to do a community presentation for all of us and you in late April. So we don't have a date for that yet. As soon as we have the date and that's scheduled, we'll get that sent out and shared with everyone so that you all can come join. It'll be really great to hear their perspective, all that they've learned, and they'll be able to share all that they've been able to do. And then they'll be giving us those drawings to then be able to use, thank you, for the FEMA grants as well. So it's a pretty exciting project as we move forward here. Mark, is there anything you want to add, or does anyone have any questions or anything before I keep going?
No, Bill organized that, right? Bill.
Yep.
Yeah, that was huge. Yeah. That was really good.
Yep. And so this is all, I will also add, this is all fully funded by the community college partnerships. So we have not paid a single dollar for this. This is completely donated, basically, the funding to pay this for the students to come up here. They're volunteering their time, all of it. So it's a pretty exciting project.
And they were very thankful to us too, because Pat and everybody else had, footprint drawings of a lot of the houses, all of the houses that were on the list and everything else. And they said that was a big plus. So we got off to a really good start with them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been a wonderful partnership, which is exciting. And I will add, it's been so positive that the Community College Partnerships wants to continue work with us on other aspects of our flooding. So it's pretty exciting. We might have other students from other universities coming at other times working on parts of different aspects of the flooding work. So it's a really great promising for both the FEMA grants, but also for future work with us, which is awesome. Are there any other questions or anything with that before I keep going? Alrighty. So the next thing I want to do is actually share a little bit of resources. I don't believe we shared this back in October. You can stop me if we did. But one of the things I wanted to share is actually some of the work that the Huron River Watershed Council has done. So they do a ton of work, of course, with the Huron River, hence that's their organization, that's what they do. I'm the Hamburg Township representative on their board of directors, so I get to see a lot of the work that they do, a lot of the resources that they have. And one of the things that they actually have is specific maps, but in particular tools for us that we can use as community members. So I'm gonna actually show you a little bit of what those look like. So if you go to the Huron River Watershed Council website, click on maps at the top, or just our watershed and maps, either way. You can go down, it says discover your creek shed. There's a lot of different tools here you can see. You can look through the macroinvertebrates, the fish, mussels, and so on, other critters. But in particular, if you click on discover your creek shed, and again, I'll share this link so you can go find this. You can learn a lot of different information. And so what they have here with the colors is these are the different creek sheds or watersheds for the different creeks that all flow into the Huron River. And so we are here in the, I believe the blue, is that right? No, we are the red, I'm sorry, the pink up here. That's South Oar Creek. So we get some information here and you can actually see there's information specifically about South Oar Creek that they've been gathering. So some history, the 34 square miles, some facts and so on, the land use. And so they actually grade it based on their evaluation of the watershed itself. They have a different chemistry and so on. So it's a lot of different resources here and information that you can go to. You can also, where did that go? Oh, here we go. So if we go back to that site, so that's just the general information for Discover Your Creek Shed. If you go, what? Okay, if you go back to the Huron River Watershed Council website and scroll down, you can get to data from the field. Now, this is where it gets pretty exciting. You can see you can get some chemistry of the local water level and flow, which we'll look at in a moment. You can also look at information about PFAS and drinking water. That's becoming a big issue, including in our area and so on. So a lot of different resources here, but what we're going to jump in today is the water level and flow. So this is what they've been doing is they've actually been partnering with a lab at U of M to actually install real-time gauges all around the different aspects of the Huron River watershed. So the big spanning thing, you can see this is all part of the watershed here. And you can get real-time data on these. So if we jump over to where we are here, the blue indicates the blue dots are like the USGS one. So if I were to click on the blue here, that would be the USGS gauge that we all are used to using to determine the flood level. But there's other gauges, the green ones are the ones that actually the U of M lab has installed that is now partnered with Huron River Watershed Council to make it so the data is fully available for everyone. So if I click on this one, it's at Horseshoe Creek, click on View Data History. And we can actually see here, you can see the dates, February 14th all the way up until right now. And so up here, we're getting information about the water level. This is the depth here. We're getting, that's the depth of the water. We're getting the elevation level right here, specifically toward the gauge. If you go down, different kind of most recent water level, it's 864. So you can actually see the changes within this creek. And the exciting part about this is this real-time data. So if we're flooding, it's raining right now, we could actually go in here and see what this is going to actually look like what it is coming right in that moment. And I can also change the date, so I can do 5 minutes, last few hours, days, years, and so on. This hasn't been up for years, but you can pick your range as well to get some information there. If you go over on the dashboard, you can pick these are some of the other resources there that you can use. I don't find that one particularly helpful, but I kind of use it to go back to where we were. Whoops, I'm sorry, I'm clicking around too much. Let me go back to where I was. So it's a really helpful resource. And the other thing that's exciting about it, there was another, is this it? No, I apologize. The other thing that's exciting about this, when we look at this map, you can see they have a whole bunch of these gauges all over the watershed. So all these green dots are the ones that the Huron River Watershed Council uses as real-time data. The really exciting thing is we've been communicating with them and they are actually willing to install 1 to 2 gauges for us specifically that will then show up as green dots on their website and then provide us and anyone else with real-time data of the water level and the flow of that place. And so we are actually in conversation with them about getting 1 to 2 of these gauges installed. This is fully funded through the Watershed Council. We do not have to pay for it. They will fund it, and then the graduate students through the lab at U of M will actually maintain them. So we're looking to have at least 1 put on South Horr Creek, and then also 1 possibly on Dubrova Creek, or maybe a second on South Horr. We're still in the conversations with Wendy and Rod about where it would make the most sense, but that's currently where we're looking. So this is really exciting. We just have to finalize the locations, and once we do that, after a little bit of conversation, they will actually come out and install those. So very soon we should have real-time data on the water level and the flow going through South Horr Creek and possibly even Dubrova Creek. So that's coming, which is pretty exciting. Do people have any questions or anything about that?
I think our initial discussions was at Riverside for that second one. Is there
No,
some reasons why we're not doing that?
There is. So because of where the river level itself and the fluctuation there, it's going to be really difficult to determine what it's actually measuring. So it turns out that out at the outlet is what Mark is referring to there. It's not going to be the best place to actually have a gauge at the outlet. So that's why we're going to focus more on the upstream. That was the conversation with Wendy and Rod.
Okay.
Yep. Other questions with that? And I will say also, once these are installed, of course, we will absolutely share this information in the links for you, all so that you can find it and go gather that information. So instead of having to look at the USGS gauge downstream, which, as I've been saying, Carrie said, isn't necessarily our water, we can look at these gauges to actually determine what's coming, which is exciting. All right, so the very last thing that I wanted to kind of talk through here is actually our next steps when we think about flood mitigation. So what can we do upstream is what we've been working on for all these years. So as I mentioned, the Army Corps of Engineers is creating that model to identify what we could do upstream on South Horr Creek and or Dubrova Creek, potentially both. But one of the things that we need to know after talking with Wendy and Rod and our other hydrologists is that we need to kind of get a sense of, well, what has been the history and people in our community trying to mitigate the water level and all of what's going on in the environment around us, to then inform what that might look like more bigger picture when we think about long-term mitigation efforts, which is the goal of all of this. So questions I have for all of you, in a moment I'll stop sharing my screen and I'll go ahead and put these in the chat, is for us to take a little bit of time today and actually share some of the methods that people have used in the past to manage water. So for example, any dredging or spraying of the weeds or driving boats in areas to intentionally limit weeds or anything else that people have done. When those methods started, when they ended, and then where they actually occurred. So an example of this is, I know like us up on Branch Drive in the past, I've heard people talk about in this community, talk about folks spraying in the wetlands up there to try and get rid of some of the weeds through there, or driving their boats through way back when. Those are all examples of things that we want to know and get a sense of when they happened and where exactly, so that we can gather that information, share it with our hydrologists, because they're going to use that when they start looking at the model to then very specifically identify what are these mitigation efforts. But we need this information to help us get there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to grab these questions. I'll put them in the chat for us. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And I'd like to give us a little bit of time for folks to actually share out some of the things they know about the history. And when I say history, this can be 30 years ago, 10 years ago. I'm not talking about last year. I'm talking about longer periods of time. So what have people been doing for quite a while to actually deal with all of the water levels and the weeds and things? So with that, I'm going to stop talking, and I'd love to hear from all of you. So please just jump in. We have a small group, so we'll just stay together. Just jump in on all the things you know that have been happening.
Well, I guess I should probably go if nobody else is going to start. Yeah, I lived here for 48 years in my current home, and it's been a flood zone ever since then. I brought in probably several hundred yards of dirt when I first moved out here to get my house from being in a pool of water surrounded by it, because I'm on a slab. I've put in just multiple drain lines all through my property, running it down to the lake to help mitigate the water. And as I believe I've texted Carrie and Amber pictures of my side yard in the spring, and it's almost knee deep, you know, and that's 200 feet from the lake. So it's been a challenge, but I love it here. I'll stay here the rest of my life.
Good. We want you here.
Yes, we do, Bob. Bob, do you have a sense of when you've put those in to help kind of with that water, and and has it made a difference doing that?
It's made a tremendous difference because, like you say, the north end seems to catch the water first. I put in, oh my God, probably 300 to 600 feet of 6-inch drain, probably 10 or 15 years ago, and that helped mitigate the standing water in my yard because it would stand there for perhaps a week or more because it's like a big sponge. We're on peat moss over here, as you know, Amber. You've come over, and it's like a big peat moss bog. I don't know how they ever allowed us to build on it, but they did, and I put that in, and it helped tremendously. And then I had to put about 3 more additional crocks and pumps in, and my neighbors did the same thing. So we can get rid of the water rather quickly when we do get that 4 or 5 inches of rain or 2 or 3 inches of rain. We can get rid of that water rather quickly, where before it would take Mother Nature possibly a week to 10 days for it to recede where you can cut the grass again. So the pumping does help. I just wish that we were on storm drain sewers where we're at, but that'll probably never happen.
Yeah.
That's helpful, Bob. Thank you.
Mhm.
Does anyone else know of any efforts in their areas around the lake to try and help with the weeds or the water or anything? Jeff is joining me. Oh, here, I'll make it so they can see you. Hiding in the back of my Zoom. Hold on. Sorry. I'll get there. There
Hi,
you go,
Jeff.
Jeff.
Hello. Yeah, when we first moved here 27 years ago, the first summer that we lived here, the residents in our area had been doing weed control on the canal, which is part of Dubrova Creek behind our property. And that had been going on for several years. But for whatever reason, that was the last year that was ever done. That would have been 97. But they had apparently been doing it for several years. And at that time, the canal behind us, which now is not really a canal anymore, it's just a
Weeds.
swamp. But it was open and people could drive a boat back there.
Mhm.
In fact, one of the neighbors told us that people used to park their boats back there. So I don't know how that relates to the water flow and the flooding and all that. But
Yeah, well, I mean, depending on the plants that are there, they have different capacities to hold water, so it very likely could be affecting it that way. Do you know when they started doing that, Jeff?
no, I don't.
Okay. All right, we can check with folks around here.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
What about any other folks know of anything in their area?
Well, I mean, on a smaller scale, we're doing aqua thrusters. There's 5 of them along our shoreline now, which goes out about 55 to 60 feet to remove weeds. So it does help water flow as far as being impeded by weeds. So it's not going to affect the flooding of the lake, but to me, anything that can help water flow rather seamlessly is a benefit. So we started out with mine. The Bill bought one, and there's 2 more on the east end of the canal. So there's 4 or 5 of them out here running now, and you can see the difference in the water. It's more of a weed water quality thing than a flow thing. But since the water does flow through the channel and basically right in front of my house and Bill Frederick's house, you can see where it's had some benefit of removing some of the restriction. Is it a small percentage? Yeah. Is it making much difference on lake flooding? Of course not. But I think that we might not end up with one great big grand knob to turn to address some of this, but maybe multiple little things that could all add up to help mitigate some of this.
Exactly. And Carrie, you just started doing that, is that right?
I started 3 years ago.
3 years ago.
Bill and Pat Hoffman put theirs in last year, and it's made a huge difference in the channel now as far as clearing up the water. So, and then I know there's 2 more people that have bought them if they saw mine, so there's 5 of them going here. And I think Mark Tenbrink has one.
Yep.
So, is it gonna make a huge difference on water flow past there? No, but anything that helps kind of control weeds, and to me, a big part of it is that the weeds don't get, when they come loose, they can easily get sort of jammed up down there at the culvert. So if anything else, it's helping to try to keep that somewhat cleaner and flowing better.
Yeah. I appreciate that, but that's helpful information, like, right, to put into the model to see what that means. So
Yeah.
thank you. Any others?
Well, one that we've talked about before, of course, was the Huron River where they do weed harvesting.
Yep, and they've been doing that for years. I know there was a pause at one point, but also that's dependent on the river level. But the township, thank you, Cindy, and others at the township have been doing a lot of great work to make it so they can do that more and more. More and more likely to be able to do it, regardless of the water level, which has been great.
Cindy,
but
did we finally go to our co-owned machine with the county?
They are not doing that. The county's
So
not getting one.
the purchase of a weed harvester is off the table?
I think so. We actually couldn't depend on them, so we signed
Oops, Cindy went away now.
Oh, what was
Okay,
that?
thank you.
Cindy, you're muted. Say that
sorry.
again. Oh, try it again.
a contract. Oh. A 3-year contract with PLM to do the weed harvesting because we couldn't figure out if they were for sure gonna do it or not. We had to go forward from
Mhm.
this season on.
I appreciate that. Thank you for doing that. I'm sorry the county wouldn't agree to that or even broach the topic, but I'm
Yeah.
glad the township is helping, so thank you. Mhm. And I can talk with Pat unless you know, Cindy. Do you have a sense of which years they've been doing the harvesting? Because I know at sometimes there's like gaps in when they can do it, and there was a pause at one point. Do you know that, or if
No,
not,
I don't. I do know that the summer before last, it never cooperated, the water level. But
Yeah.
we purchased these Moby mats
Mhm.
where we can get down there more easily. And we were able to do it last year. Can't
Thank
be
you.
too high or can't be too low.
Right.
Right. Thank you for doing that.
I thought I remember there was some talk with Pat about getting a new piece of property or regrading some launch ramp for that. Is that still something on the table, or I don't know?
I don't know anything about that.
Okay. Pat said something, he was very excited about the fact that they had acquired, or they were in the process of acquiring some new property that would allow them to build a much better launch ramp that wouldn't be so affected by water levels, that they could launch pretty much no matter what the water level was. And that was last year he said that, so I don't know if that's gone anywhere or not.
Okay. I'll ask him about it.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Cindy. Does anyone have anything else? Any other ways that communities around the lake have been managing the water and the weeds?
Just to follow up as a question that Cindy said that the funding may not have been there. Can we connect that FEMA money that we talked about at the beginning of the meeting into something like that? Is that?
So that FEMA money is specific for individuals in response to the disasters that happened in August and June. The money that wasn't hoping to be used for it actually was from, oh my gosh, I'm blanking.
ARPA funds.
What was it, Cindy?
ARPA funds.
Yeah,
County level.
yeah, the county ARPA funds, but the decision didn't end up getting moved forward. Mhm.
Okay.
Anything
And
else?
That's
for
American Rescue Act, if you didn't know that.
Yeah.
What are you rescuing?
any other ways communities have helped with the weeds or the water?
Nope. That's why we're on this team.
Right. Well, I know, but this team needs help, so we're asking for the help there. Okay, so the very last thing, then I just want to share my screen so that folks can see the last one. Just I find it helpful to have a visual. Our next meeting is going to be on, so this is our next organization meeting, just like this one. It's going to be May 16th at 7 p.m. on Zoom. We'll have our August one in person like we always do. But our next one for this will be May 16th. And so plan to come back on Zoom. That said, what I will say is we are going to go back to the work with the college students from University of Southern Alabama. They are going to do a meeting on Zoom as well at a different time, but it'll be in April. So like I said, once we have the date, I will share that with you. And then the other third meeting that's coming up, if we go back up, is actually with the Army Corps of Engineers. So we have 2 meetings coming up that are not scheduled yet. One with the Army Corps of Engineers to share the work they've been doing with the modeling and those mitigation efforts that we're very anxiously waiting to hear about. Another one with the college students for the elevation work that they've been doing for the FEMA grants. And then our organization meeting that is scheduled for May 16th on Zoom. And all 3 of those should end up being on Zoom because folks are in different states and different places around the state. And we want to make sure everyone has access to it. So this way, wherever people are, they can still make it to the meetings. So on that note, I just want to say thank you all very much for coming tonight and being patient as my internet randomly went out and I could run over to the neighbors. So thanks, Jeff and Diane, for that. And thank you all for sharing what you've been working on. If you do have any ideas that come up about things your community has done with the waterways or the weeds and all of that, please let me know. You can email the group, you can email me personally, you can call or text me, any of those ways. We want to make sure Diane or Carrie or anyone else in the call, we just want to gather that information so that we have fully informed when we actually start identifying those upstream mitigation efforts. So thank you again, everyone. Fingers crossed we survive this one and don't flood or anything like that. Happy spring it, and we'll be in touch. And I'll stay on for a moment for any folks who want to like chat or talk, but thank you. It's good to see you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Amber.
Yeah. Hey, Eric.
Hey, Amber, how are you?
How
Real
are you?
quick, I just got an email this afternoon from one of the college students or group of college students. Sent me out